Mainstream media has lost control. They've lost the ability to dictate to us what the Portland ICE protests look like by Antifa. And mainly through the reporting of a number of right-wing, or, that's what they're always referred to, conservative reporters, boots on the ground reporters that continually are down there filming, and mainstream media isn't. And now mainstream media is like, what about us? Why can't we get on the rooftop? Well, why is that? Let's get into it. Here we go. I was down in Portland a couple of weekends ago, just kind of, as you do, hanging out in your mid to late 50s, just seeing what's going on with the ICE protests. And one of the big stories was Katie Daviscourt had just been jabbed in the eye with a flagpole, big, black eye. She went and saw Trump with a big black eye. But also, numerous other reporters, people that have been just literally walking around with a camera on a public street, have been accosted by Antifa. And there's always this storyline that everything's great here, everything's fine. And you got governors walking around going, it's all good here, nothing to see here. But you've continually got this feed of, wait a minute, what happened last night? 3 people got arrested because they tried to break inside the ICE facility. Oh, okay. All right. What's that look like? And boop, you just bring it up and there it is. You've got instant coverage of what's going on. So remember during the whole summer of love, when mainstream media told us that the cities that were just burning to the ground were mostly peaceful protests? Remember that? Well, we're kind of beyond that now, and we also have an administration who wants to know what the real deal is. And the real deal is the vast majority of what goes on at the Portland ICE facility is just a bunch of knuckleheads walking around, just chanting ridiculous nonsense. But every now and then things flare up, and that is when things just kind of go, oh, that's not good. And people get arrested because they are breaking the law. And that happens all the time. And so mainstream media can't paint this picture of, hey, everything's great here, just keep Portland weird. Can't do that anymore. When you've also got a president who is saying, hey, what's going on there? Let's bring a dozen of you here to the White House and you tell me what's going on. And so that's a video we're going to watch here. Let's check this out. This is a story from 𝗪𝗧𝗛, KGW. I think she's a good reporter. I've enjoyed her content. I have no issues with her, but she, again, is mainstream media, KGW, and, they're not going to go in hard on Antifa. They're just not. That hasn't been the narrative by anybody, anywhere. Mainstream media. Here we go.
Let's talk about the media coverage surrounding what is happening on Portland's South Waterfront. Over the past several weeks, the protests outside the Portland ICE building have been in the national spotlight. But let's remember, people have been protesting there against President Trump's immigration enforcement efforts for more than 100 days. There have been clashes between protesters and federal agents who are there protecting the building. Early on, the demonstrations drew little media attention here on the local level, and especially not nationally. But that started to change in late August, when former Oregon Congresswoman and President Trump's Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez DeRemer, mentioned Portland in a cabinet meeting, saying she was hoping for a, quote, crackdown. About a week later, Fox News did a 5-minute segment on the Portland ICE building protests, calling it a, quote, sanctuary city run amok. From there, the negative rhetoric about Portland has run wild, war zone, like living in hell, everything is on fire, you've heard the sound bites. Much of that rhetoric has been amplified and some would argue backed up by conservative, independent social media journalists and influencers. Last week, I talked with one of them who flew into Portland from D.C.
I'm documenting this. This is the United States of America. I'm an American and I'm here. And this is...
Okay, that's Nick Sorter. He has more than 1 million followers on the social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter. In his bio, he describes himself as being, quote, on scene covering stories mainstream media won't, seen on national outlets such as Tucker Carlson and Fox News. Earlier this month, Sorter was arrested by Portland police for disorderly conduct during one of the protests outside the ICE building. The Multnomah County District Attorney's Office ultimately did not move forward to formally charge him. But his arrest brought the political spotlight back to Portland, and in a big way, with the U.S. Department of Justice promising to investigate Portland police over Sorter's arrest.
You know, I've covered that. Did they have justification for arresting him? Yes, probably, but it was minuscule relative to everything else going on. And Portland police was just basically trying to de-escalate the situation and get him out of there, which they did. And that's what they're always working on doing. But when you've got a pretty prominent guy like Nick Sorter, it kind of just, oh, what's going on here? How come you're arresting him and not all these other numbnuts? Because Portland basically protects its protesters at the expense of law and order. And all you got to do is walk down there and go, okay, yeah, these are a bunch of just, keep Portland weird people. You got people running around in costumes now. That's not illegal, but it's like mental, right? It's mental to scream in your bullhorn up at the ICE facility. Remember, and I think what's interesting here is the rest of the country looks at this and they go, why are they protesting at the ICE facility? ICE is deporting criminal illegals from our community. Why are they upset about that? That's the disconnect from reality that so many of these big blue cities have, including this reporting segment, right? It's like, hey, yeah, there's people protesting, but why? Oh, they're protesting law and order? Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's protected under free speech, but what kind of dum-dum does that, right? What kind of numbnut do you have to be to go that direction? Oh, yeah, I don't like law and order. Just let everybody do their thing. Yeah, and that's Portland, right? From the governor on down.
Sorter is also one of several social media personalities who have been given special access to the ICE building in South Portland, as well as access to federal officials. Another person enjoying that access is named Katie Davis-Court. She writes for The Post-Millennial. It's a Canada-based publication that calls itself one of the largest conservative news outlets in the world. Here she is on the roof of the Portland ICE building. And Fox News also has a correspondent that is allowed on top of and inside the Portland ICE building. Now, KGW has asked for that same access numerous times, and our requests continue to go unanswered. Same goes for
I don't just, so you get inside the ICE building and you're looking down. All right. Okay. I told the man in blue that I wanted to be boots on the ground. I want to be right there in case something happens. But yeah, I get it. You want to see it from the rooftop? Oh, okay. All right. What it is it's access, favoritism to the conservative reporters. Now, what I would say there is, now you take a flagpole to the eye socket. All right, we're going to let you up here. You get arrested. You get thrown in, kind of a flower bush thing like Nick Sorter did. You got tossed around. And he saved a flag from being burned. All right. That's more on the side of law enforcement than against. Right. And that's the image. Mainstream media lied to us for so long that everything was peaceful. Everything's great. Everything's fine. You got governors walking around. You got mayors walking around. It's all good here. What? It's all good. This is all fine. And it's not. It's not. It's simply not. Is it this utter multi-block disaster? No, it's a handful of blocks. It's a couple of blocks that are truly impacted. Is it ongoing all the time? It's nightly. And if you've been to one of these and you've seen the rhetoric and just the anger and just the whole thing that eventually leads to a couple of people getting arrested for breaking the law, then you're like, okay, all right, yeah, we're not getting the full story from mainstream media. You are getting the full story from these other reporters. So lack of access to the rooftop of the ICE building is what is really got mainstream media butthurt. They're like, oh, why can't we get up there? Well, because you haven't really been reporting the story in an accurate way. So there's that. Kind of like mainstream media hasn't portrayed accurate stories for a couple of decades, right? So people on the right are like, what? Yeah, what about the story that you just completely blew off and went one-sided? Oh yeah, I see that Minneapolis is burning, and you're calling that mainly peaceful. Huh. All right, but anyway, let's keep going.
Local media outlets. Just days after I talked with 𝗥𝗘𝗠𝗜𝗨𝗠 outside the ICE building, he and others who are prominent on conservative social media pages were invited to Washington, D.C. for a roundtable with President Trump, Secretary Kristi Noem, and Attorney General Pam Bondi. They were asked to talk about Antifa and what they experienced on the ground in Portland. Here are pictures they posted.
So Katie Davis Court, pretty good job with the makeup there. Andy No. Milkshake incident, guy just got rocked. I mean, he had a brain contusion. So you either have to get arrested or beat up, and that's how you get onto the rooftop. So there's that, right? Some Antifa member pops you, they get arrested, you get a black eye. That's kind of one of those things where, all right, you paid your dues, we're going to let you up. Plus, we don't think you're safe on the street, so we're going to let you up. And that's the way I see it, and rightfully so. Rightfully so.
From that day. Let's listen to some of what they had to say.
We're the ones that were on the ground. We're the ones that are actually reporting what's going on. And you know, much of the legacy media has been either ignoring it or covering for Antifa for years now.
Correct.
Thank you guys so much for taking this seriously. And President Trump, you mentioned that flag. So remember, you put out a truth right after
that's right. I saw that.
Took this flag.
He breaks the flag. That's awesome.
You know who he is?
Oh, yeah, I know exactly who it is.
So why don't you give it to Pam?
So great.
General, and let's start prosecutions. And at least that horrible night made you famous.
I got a text from the President of the United States, so I appreciate that.
And
Trump never misses the spin. He never misses the spin. Hey, you got this. It's a deal. Right?
President Trump, after that happened to Nick, I called 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗧 and we opened a pattern and practice investigation into the Portland police very publicly as to how they let this happen.
I'm an investigative journalist.
And that happened the weekend I was there. There was like this bullet point of, well, we need this from you and this from you and this from you. Portland police is basically covering for Antifa. That's what they're doing. And it's a directive from up high. It's a directive from the governor. It's just, it's sad to watch. It's sad to see Portland police, Bob Day try and cover, because you just have lack of law and order and not cooperating with another law and order entity. That to me, I mean, that's not how America should be operating.
From Seattle, I work for the Post Millennial alongside Andy No and 𝗥𝗘𝗠𝗜𝗨𝗠. I have been infiltrating Antifa cells in Seattle and Portland for the past decade. I know their inner workings, but today I want to focus on what is happening in Portland at the ICE facility. I've been covering this for the past 4 months, and this is a call out to corporate media who has completely ignored this story or has falsely reported on it. This is nothing short other than a sustained attack on the United States, which is being supported by Democratic elected officials. The Portland Police Bureau has completely abandoned several blocks outside the ICE facility, giving away their jurisdiction to a terrorist group who has spent the past 4 months harassing, assaulting, and intimidating anyone they perceive to be against their cause.
100%. 100% that is true. I was there. And it's not a matter of, it's different this time in Portland. This is how it always is with Antifa. This is how it always is they try and intimidate you. They call you fascist, but when you say something or you represent something that they don't like, they cut you off at the knees and say, oh, you're a fascist. You're a Nazi. And you're like, no, I'm not. I'm just standing here, a middle-aged man trying to film what's going on. And these people get wildly upset because they know they're breaking the law. And these reporters right here are covering them breaking the law, and they don't like it. And mainstream media is like, oh, what's going on? We can't control this narrative anymore. This sucks. Right? Because you've actually got a president who is taking in this information and doing something with it because he's not a He's not a Joe Biden, where Joe Biden he couldn't work out, what day it was, let alone an issue as complex as this, which isn't really that complex because Portland is basically given over a multi-block area to a far left extremist group that is very violent, period.
Today, I am sitting here with a black eye and a concussion after being violently hit in the face with a metal pole while reporting outside the ICE facility just this past week.
Portland police has had a presence outside the ICE building since early June when the protests began, and they've arrested 50 people in connection to those protests. Last week, Senator Ron Wyden posted this on social media, responding to Katie Davis Court's picture on the roof of the Portland ICE building. Senator Wyden wrote, "Assuming actual local news outlets like OPB, The Oregonian, Willamette Week, Oregon Capital Chronicle, the Portland Mercury, K2, Coin, KGW, KPTV, and others would get the same rooftop reporting access as these right-wing influencers." Davis Court responded to that post saying, 1, I am not an influencer. 2, I'm a full-time employed journalist who has been covering the occupation for the past 4 months, mostly by myself with the exception of another independent journalist. If local news had any ground presence over the last 4 months, they would have also been invited to embed with ICE or FPS. Where have they been? Okay, worth noting.
Where have they been? Well, they're covering the story that politicians in Portland and Oregon have dictated to them. Minimize the damage, maximize, hey, it's an issue of freedom of speech. ICE is bad. They're deporting just average citizens, which just simply isn't true. ICE is doing a function that has always been done by ICE. And yet, because we don't like it, because the feds now represent Orange Man bad, we hate the feds. We just absolutely hate the feds. Oh my gosh, we hate the feds. We hate the feds. DHS, FBI, CIA, ICE. And ICE has got a presence coming in and out with this facility. And so every time they come out, the numbnuts from Antifa get out there and yell at them with their bullhorns, quit your job. And way worse than that, right? It's this psychotic little play that happens every night. And Antifa pushes it as far as they can. And invariably somebody gets arrested. And, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid from the standpoint nothing is going to change from this. ICE isn't going to give up. So what are you doing? What are you doing? That's a good question, right? They're exercising their freedom of speech, which some would say makes them fascists because they're literally trying to eliminate the freedom of speech of the conservative reporters covering it.
Noting that to our knowledge, the national arm of Fox News has not had a ground presence there for the past 4 months, yet they were allowed in with the feds. But okay, that brings us back to the original question, the difference between journalists and social media influencers. Those of us who work on this show see the main difference coming down to rules and oversight. We have to follow many rules and ethics and are held accountable for what we put on the air, not only by our station and ownership group, but also by federal agencies like the FCC. While self-described independent journalists can post their take on a situation with little to no oversight or rules. So that's how we see it. This morning, I talked with conservative radio talk show.
I would say it's more about influence. When you're a small independent like I am, I can say whatever I want. And as long as YouTube doesn't take me off, if I don't play by their rules, then I don't have all that oversight. But I'm also basically putting out a story the way I see it without all these filters of everything's great here. It's mostly peaceful. 2 thumbs up, just like the governor says, just like the mayor says, all good. We're not doing that. We go down there and we take a camera and we live stream, and that is, or record or however you want to document that. And that is what Antifa gets all worked up about. So yes, there is a distinction, and it's that distinction between mainstream media, because mainstream media doesn't want to feed into, hey, Antifa's real. Remember when they kept telling us that Antifa was a myth? No wonder people don't trust mainstream media, right? Because they're flat out lying to you. They lie through their teeth to you time and time and time and time and time and time again. And then somebody comes along with the truth and folks are like, oh, this isn't what we've been told. No, you're right.
Host 𝗪𝗧𝗪 to get his take.
Well, part of the problem of describing, say, somebody who's acting as an online or web journalist, and I do both that and regular broadcast. If you describe them as an influencer, I think it's not only inaccurate, but it's pejorative. If you describe somebody who's acting as a journalist, somebody there to cover the story, as an influencer, influencer says something different. It says you are a gun for hire, and if somebody is paying you money, then you go out and you promote either a particular idea or a particular service or a particular product. That's not what journalists do.
Now, I also asked him what he makes of the Trump administration picking and choosing who is allowed access to the Portland ICE building and federal officials.
I think it's exactly par for the course because Trump has been under attack from the mainstream media for 10 years. So the fact...
Period. Mainstream media has lied and lied and lied and lied and lied. So why would we support mainstream media? Why would we support that? We wouldn't. So Trump's a big F you. Hey, I want to see what's really going on here.
He plays favorites. Doesn't surprise me one little bit. Any more than I've, throughout my entire career, run into companies and individuals who've said, we don't trust the media and we're not letting you in.
Yeah.
Okay, well, joining us now live is 𝗨𝗡𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠, an award.
And 𝗨𝗡𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠, 𝗨𝗡𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠𝗠, what he comes right out and basically says is, hey, have these people ever questioned Trump? Have they ever questioned something from that he said? Have they ever gone against him in any way, shape, or form? If they haven't, then, and we'll read about it, if they haven't, then they're influencers. And all I could think of is, you've just described mainstream media for the last 20 years and their support of the Democrat Party. Period. So does that make them all leftist influencers? Argument can be made, right? Argument can be made. So the headline article is journalists and social media influencers have covered Portland ICE facility protests. What's the difference? We're going to skip. We've basically covered most all of the stuff that Blair Best had, but let's go down and I just want to, here's that last part that I was talking about. This is the last part I was talking about. A journalist, and this is Tompkins, the very last guy we saw. A journalist to me is someone who collects and disseminates information with equal veracity, with equal force, equal enthusiasm, no matter what it finds. Has mainstream media done that? NBC, ABC, CBS? What about all the talk show hosts? What about late night talk show hosts? What about Hollywood? What about Disney? What about all of your major streaming services have just gone way to the left? What about all that? So I would ask these people who met with the president the other day, have they ever said anything critical of Donald Trump? Do they ever report anything critical of him? And the answer is no. No, they don't. And so for me, those people aren't journalists. Now, as mainstream media, did they criticize Biden at all, ever? No. Did they criticize Trump? Every single day. Orange man bad. I walked into Chevron Mini Mart this morning, as you do, right? As you do. And the headline from the Seattle Times was, we just had Trump put together that peace agreement, right? And the headline wasn't Trump puts together peace agreement. The headline was something about the exchange, right? We're giving zero credit to Orange Man bad because Orange Man is bad, but we're going to talk about it in such a way, it just miraculously happened. Don't know what happened. Well, there's all of a sudden there's a peace agreement. You know what I mean? That's the Seattle Times, probably one of the most liberal pieces of crap that's out there, along with New York Times, Washington Post. As far as influenced reporting and Orange Man bad. So those people are propagandists. So he's describing the right folks who never criticized Donald Trump. But you could say that about mainstream media, ABC, CBS, NBC, all of that. You could say that about all of them for decades, that they're propagandists. You just could. And I don't use that word in a mean way. I mean, propagandists can be fact tellers. They're just one-sided. So how is that much different? Is that different? I don't think so. And you know what's really interesting is folks can't figure out when I covered the super mayor, Tiffany Henyard, Tiff, in, God, did I have that? I had that out the whole time. Bunch of notes on there. You weren't supposed to see that. You know, we're full of transparency here, though. When I covered Tiffany Henyard, she couldn't work out. All right, are you mainstream media? Because you're a blogger, aren't you? She couldn't work out the difference between YouTube and print media versus radio versus, somebody recording on X. She couldn't really work out. Who do I let in? Who do I not let in? Who do I trust? Who do I not trust? And invariably, Tiff, the super mayor, would go with NBC, ABC, CBS, because they can be trusted to tell the truth. Okay. But the guy out there doing a live stream, you can't trust him. That's really interesting how that works, right? Can't trust that dude or girl, honey badger mom, just out there doing a stream, just absolutely streaming. And that is why Antifa doesn't like any kind of coverage at all, because invariably they're going to catch Antifa in the act of doing something illegal, and they don't want that to get out. They want this narrative that the mainstream media has put out there continuously that everything's great, no issues, Portland's not on fire, it's all good, it's calm, it's fine, Portland's open for business. And that's simply not the case, right? That's not the case. The truth is somewhere in the middle there. And I think the right-wingers right now they're covering it more accurately than anybody else, and they're getting more attention, and they're getting invited to the White House, period. That's how it goes. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe, do all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.